Hello, everyone, and welcome. So happy that you're with us. We are trying something brand new on this episode where we are trying to do TikTok Live and YouTube while we're on our Twitter spaces. So if we have some technical difficulties throughout the show, please forgive us. But so happy to have you with us on what is on the eve of the NFL draft. A lot of rumors circulating out there, a lot of things going on. Really curious to see what actually comes out of the next couple of days. And obviously, once we get to Thursday night, a lot of action. The big news around the NFL draft right now is Will Levis and what his draft odds are. But we will get to that in plenty of time. We have other analysts with us tonight. Want to give them a shout out. The first one, of course, is a longtime contributor. For those who are on TikTok Live, you can check him out on Twitter at SpotterAJ. That's Adam. Adam, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, really good. It's the draft is here, couple days away, and it's funny how we talk about leading up to the drafts and who's going to go where, and this is a solid pick, and then everything just gets completely thrown up in the air a day or two before the draft. So we'll talk about it a little bit later, but yeah, it's good. I'm ready for the draft to be here for sure.
Yeah, and we'll get into your guy, Aaron Rodgers, in just a minute. I know Adam's very happy that we can finally move on from the saga that has occupied way too much of his life. But also want to give a shout out to our other analyst who's on tonight. That's Michael Dobbin. You can check him out on Twitter at MikeDobbs94. So all of those who are joining us on TikTok Live and on YouTube, make sure you follow these guys on Twitter because both of them know their stuff and they're giving a lot of great analysis throughout the show. Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Can't complain. Also excited for the draft Thursday, so can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, really excited. And one of the things I wanted to shout out tonight, because it goes around Will Levis, there's been a story out today that on Reddit, there was a post that got dropped that apparently he has been saying to family and friends that he has been told by the Carolina Panthers that he's going to be the number one pick taken on Thursday night. At the time, please correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, his odds were 4,000 to 1. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, he was basically 40 to 1 is what he was to start today. And then when the rumors came out, obviously Vegas doesn't move their odds on rumors, but he dropped to 8 to 1. So there must be something.
I'm seeing it 4 to 1 now. I'm seeing him at plus 400 in places, which just goes to show the movement. And again, This is all off of a Reddit post. I mean, this is the meme stock of NFL draft news if there ever was one. And one of the things I wanted to talk about with you guys to open up the show tonight was, and forgive me, I'm going to start with another sport to make my point. When we're midway through the NCAA tournament and March Madness, we often go, oh, we're learning so much. You should pick teams that are ranked, appropriately here, or we're in the top 10 during this week. Or you start to understand that certain metrics create the winning brackets come the NCAA tournament. But then the tournament ends, and you have to wait a whole 11 months before you make another NCAA bracket, and you forget a lot of the lessons that you learned the previous year. The same thing can be said about the NFL draft in this way. Every year, a week before the draft, there are just lies and speculation and other nonsense and bullshit that's thrown out there. And we eat it up because we're so excited for the draft. We've been waiting months. We want to get some actual confirmation of something that we're willing to believe anything. But in reality, it's a bunch of nonsense. It's smoke screens. It's teams telling you that they like a certain player in part because they don't actually want you to know which player they like so that that player's not taken off the board before their pick. So I feel like the final few days before the draft, we forget what we learned the last year's draft, which is don't believe everything you hear. Do I really think Will Levis is going to be the number one pick overall? I don't. I think it's Bryce Young. I'm now curious, Mike, what do you think? Do you think the rumors about Will Levis are true?
Honestly, I can't believe a Reddit post. Like, that's the thing, is that it's someone's speculation on Reddit where he's saying his source is Will Levis himself. But, like, okay, I can go on Reddit myself and be like, all right, Bryce Young told me himself that he's going number one overall.
Right.
So you can't really – like, the fact that Vegas switched the odds that quickly off a rumor, I'm not entirely sure that makes me trust Vegas that much. But everyone knows it's like Vegas knows something to change the odds. But
did Vegas change the odds, or did money come in?
I have no clue. But it's just, to me, that is just something that is preposterous with the whole rumor and Will Levis going first overall. The rumor that I see most connected to Will Levis that is plausible is the coach trading up to the second position to draft him. I just don't see him going first overall. He is not the best quarterback prospect, and I don't think he's going to be the best in the next few years anyways.
It's interesting now who's also coming out of the woodwork to make their case for a quarterback. We've had now months to evaluate quarterbacks, and now everyone is choosing where they're going to stake their claim into the ground of, this is the guy that I believe in the most. I know Will Levis has an incredible arm, and his arm strength is impressive, but he took a step back his senior year. Now, there are examples in the past where that worked out, Dan Marino, but I don't think this guy's Dan Marino. Adam, you've had a chance to look at quarterbacks over the last few months. Is there one that you feel is deserving of the number one pick, and where does Will Levis fall in the group?
Well, I've never been a big Will Levis guy to begin with. And to back up real quick to your point, 2 points. One about Vegas. Vegas doesn't move odds around on rumors, right? They move odds around on money coming in, and they move odds around about what they find out from like their insiders and everything. So there's got to be, there's smoke, there's fire. They're not going to just drop that from 40 to 8. Or now you said 4 to 1 you've seen in some places. So there's got to be something there of a real possibility for Vegas to do that. And another thing to your point about learning lessons from last year's draft, it's as simple as this. We're in a now society. We all want to know. We want to know right now what team's going to pick this guy. Who are they? We all want to know first, right? We all want to be the guy that finds out who the Carolinas going to take first or the Texans are going to take second. So you're right. Smoke screen, team positioning, not letting in a what guy they like and what they don't like. That happens all the time, right? Because obviously you don't want to tip your hand on who you like. But I think it's just because we get so wrapped up in the draft and all of us obviously are huge NFL fans. We love the draft and it consumes a lot of our life. We all just want to know. We want to know the answer and want to know it now. So I think that's kind of where you get to the point as you get close to the draft and then all of a sudden the uncertainty sets in. It's kind of frustrating as fans, right? For the most part.
I'm totally with you. And I think that I like the combine. I like the evaluation process. This last part, this is like the horses are walking over to the starting gate and you're just like, okay, if you're coming up with insight now because of their stride or how nervous they are in front of the crowd, I guess you have better insight than me, or you're just looking for nonsense. But what fascinated me about what came out in the last few days is it is propelled by this idea that this is a draft that could potentially have 4 or 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. It sounds like 4 for sure. Hendon is being talked about as being that 5th. We're going to get into the odds of how many quarterbacks could be taken, and that's a prop bet that's out there. But this whole rumor mill, it is going to throw a wrench into this draft that really excites me. But another wrench that got thrown into this draft happened away from the actual draft board and had to do with a trade. Adam, you know where we're going with this one. You are finally free of the Aaron Rodgers drama. I'll shut up. I just want to hear what you have to say. How do you feel to have that mole removed from your backfield?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like a weight's been lifted off of Packer Nation. And whether you wanted him to stay or didn't want him, to stay or go, it's finally over. Nails in the coffin, right? It's time to move on. The Jets can move on. The Packers can move on. I honestly, you're not going to get what you could get for, the Russell Wilson to Denver trade last year. That's not going to happen. And the Jets were not going to give up their first round pick this year. That wasn't going to happen. But for what the Packers got in return, I'm actually pretty excited about it. They move up 2 spots in the draft, which we all know 2 spots in the first round could make a huge difference on if a player is falling, or you don't have to trade up to get that guy. Like 2 spots is massive in the first round. So to get those 2 spots up, I think was really, really good. They get a second round pick this year as well, middle second round pick. I thought it was going to be both their seconds, but it ended up being just one. They get the 6th rounder. But the real key to this deal to me, which I thought was a great job by Goody, was to get that 2024 second round pick with the potential of it becoming a first round if Rodgers plays 65% of the plays. That's only 11 games. So the Packers next year could have 2 first round picks potentially if Rodgers plays 11 games. So I think, and also too, the Jets picked up $58 million of that guaranteed bonus. Yes, there's a salary cap hit in 2023 for the Packers, but guess what? After 2023, we're free and clear of anything to do with that contract. So to me, I think the Packers made out really, really good for what they had here. they didn't have many options. It was the Jets. There was some rumors about the Niners. So if there's someone to come and take on that contract, I think it's a huge win for the Packers. Now, on the flip side of that coin for the Jets, I think the Jets won this right now. I think the Packers won this long term with the picks and the future of what they have. But I think as of today, I think the Jets got what they had to get a huge upgrade at quarterback, even though, Rodgers only threw for over 240 yards 4 or 5 times last year. Obviously, his play had declined, but we obviously saw above average quarterback play with the Jets with that defense. If they play as well as they did last year, you're going to get 3-4 more wins. And you let Zach Wilson sit for a couple more years, and hopefully he is the future. It's just a matter of, does Rodgers play 1 or 2 years for the Jets, and how well does he play? But, just back to the point, I'm glad it's over with. I'm glad it's done with. No ill will for anything, but it's just sometimes it's time to move on. And there's time for Rodgers to move on, and he can, go to the Jets and do what he has to do. And, the Packers can move on out of Love, and hopefully Love is the guy. But if he's not the guy, like I mentioned, you could potentially have 2 first-round picks to position yourself for, probably not Williams the number 1 pick next year, but Drake May maybe in the draft. So the Packers gave themselves a lot of flexibility with this, especially getting that cap hit off the books in 2024. So I'm ecstatic. It was a great day yesterday until the Bucs played last night and lost, but it's been a great day, and I'm just glad that this thing is done and put to bed.
I mean, I can hear in how you're reacting. There's no, it's so different from what happened with Brett Favre, and that's what's so interesting. People are drawing the comparisons because there's a trade from the Packers to the Jets, but in reality, this feels very different. This feels like a divorce that I think both sides are happy happened. And to your point, I put out a reaction video after the trade went down, and I thought the Jets won the trade at first blush because the Jets haven't had a quarterback in the history of their entire franchise. I know Joe Namath is highly regarded, but look at his stats. He actually wasn't that great a quarterback statistically. Aaron Rodgers could be the best quarterback that franchise has ever had, and for that reason, I did think it was a massive upgrade for them, and they won the trade. However, now that I've had a chance to look at the compensation, I agree with you. The ability to have 2 first-round picks next year, and maybe more importantly, you even mentioned it, the idea that you can get... I think they should trade back now. I actually think you shouldn't sit there at 13, but moving up to 13 gives you leverage because someone's going to fall. Is it a Christian Gonzalez? Is it a Jalen Carter? Could he fall that far? Is it an Anthony Richardson? Once you get past those top 6 or 7, 13 is well positioned to be what kind of picks up the garbage. We have a couple questions coming in from TikTok Live. One of the questions, how many years is the Rodgers contract? I believe they expect him to be there for 2. I don't know if the contract is that. Maybe the contract extends into a 3rd season. Adam, if you could correct me. But I know that they're kind of, the expectation on the New York side is that he's going to be their starting quarterback for 2 years.
Yeah, he did sign a 3-year contract, so there are 2 years remaining on that. And like I said, they picked up that $58 million guaranteed bonus, which was huge for the Packers, for sure. Yep.
And that's one of the reasons I also like this deal for the Jets, because I do think what you gave up is about what you'd give up for a 2-year span of time. I don't actually think it sets you back. And I think the Jets have a longer window than some of the other teams in the NFL because they're so young at so many talented positions. So love the move actually for both sides. Thought it actually worked out better than I expected. I know we have other things to cover, but I am curious, Mike, what's your reaction to this? I know you're a Washington Commanders fan. I obviously follow the Patriots, but one of the things that's interesting is that our 2 franchises are actually impacted by this trade. The Patriots are kind of helped, actually, because now the Jets draft behind the Patriots as opposed to in front of them. One small note, when's the last time the Patriots were the first AFC East team that drafted? Think about that. When's the last draft the Patriots went first in that division?
That's a really good point.
Pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
But now, instead of the Packers being sandwiched between the Patriots and the Commanders, it's the Jets now. You expect that to be an offensive line position. Anyway, long build-up. Mike, what's your reaction to the trade, and does it impact your team's ability to get the guy they want, just in that jockeying of teams?
Yeah, my first initial reaction was LeBron James 2012, about damn time. He won his first championship with the Heat. It's been obviously the long saga when is he going to get traded? When is he going to get traded? Obviously, Packers had all the leverage, so they weren't going to pull the trigger until they got a compensation that they were looking for. So initial reaction as well was, yeah, Jets won the trade. They got the quarterback that they needed, albeit he is 39, just like Brett Favre when he was with the Jets. Is it going to work out? Is it going to take them to the Super Bowl? Watching all the talk shows this morning and everything, everyone's saying that it's Super Bowl or bust for the Jets. So that's going to have a
which is ludicrous, which is a ridiculous thing. Like, the Jets haven't made the playoffs in how long, and now all of a sudden it's like Super Bowl or bust because they got Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, putting Aaron Rodgers, 4-time MVP, with a bunch of young talent on the offense, they're thinking that it's just to the moon for them. And so, yes, I do think it is a little bit, a little shocking that it's just Super Bowl or bust. But at the same time, I really do like what the Packers got in return. I think that they should stay there at the 13th position because they could get like a Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think someone that's could really help their offense and take a lot of weight off Jordan Love's shoulder. But it is not a bad idea for them to trade back and get more capital as well. So
the reason I said that is more who's going to fall. To your point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. I think if this draft kind of goes as scripted, I think, to your point, I think they go, okay, let's get the most talented player or let's address a need. But if there's craziness in that top 5, Packers could have really benefited from this move up.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. So, and also with how it's just relating to Washington is that I'm not concerned whatsoever with who the Jets or the Packers are going to pick, because I don't think either of them are going to go with the cornerback position of what Washington's biggest need is, in my opinion, right now, is the cornerback. So if you have Christian Gonzalez or a Witherspoon or even Porter, either of those three that drop to the Commanders position, I think that the Commanders are sitting pretty. They can also, I've been hearing a lot from the local media in Washington that they're a prime candidate to also trade back. So I don't really think that this trade has been an issue for Washington, and I don't think that it's going to be any glaring holes for Washington.
Have another one of our loyal contributors join the show now. Want to give a big shout out to Lope. Thanks for joining. You can check him out at JLopeDog. That's DAWG is how he spells dog in his Twitter account. Lope, happy you're joining us. Know you've got hot takes on this. Lope, what's your reaction to Aaron Rodgers finally being a New York Jet?
I think, like he said, about damn time. Now we can move on. But I mean, when you make a trade like that and you have such a young team, what are the expectations for the Jets? Because I feel like they have to be at least going for a deep playoff run.
Oh, I agree. I think the reason I don't like the idea of Super Bowl or bust is look at the AFC this year. Is this the best any conference has ever been from a quarterback perspective ever in the history of the NFL? I genuinely have that question, because you think about any era, there usually was like 3 or 4 kind of quarterbacks that owned the elite space, the top of the top. Man, I thought Trevor Lawrence was emerging as a quarterback. I thought Joe Burrow was on the cusp of superstardom. Patrick Mahomes, we're living in his era. Josh Allen is a stud. Tua's got a loaded team. Aaron Rodgers now on the Jets. Lamar Jackson is spectacular. I mean, how many guys? And by the way, do we think the Titans are going to go get a quarterback? We think the Texans are going to go get a quarter? Like, now it's a question of who's the worst. The worst quarterbacks now in the AFC are Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett. I mean, that's the basement. That's how good the AFC East is. Because I know Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett aren't amazing, but if those guys are the worst quarterbacks in the entire conference, oh my God, that's loaded. I mean, obviously the Colts, what are they going to do? I'm talking about the teams that aren't drafting a quarterback. That's how deep this is. Just incredible.
Well, it'll be interesting to see with Aaron Rodgers how all in he is here, because last year he had this core of young receivers that he had not worked with, and he did not want to go to OTAs. And he just went through the motions, and he wasn't, committed. You could see it. He went through the motions. So it'll be really curious to see if he goes to all the OTAs with the Jets, gets to know, his players and stuff like that. Because, don't forget, it could be all bullshit. But he said going in that darkness retreat, he was 90% retired. And then he came out and hit his epiphany. Now he wanted to play again. So how committed is he, and how all in is he going to be for the Jets? Because if the Jets are going to make a deep playoff run, he obviously has to play better than last year. And for him to do that with a whole new group of teammates and receivers and everybody, he's going to have to be 100% all in.
And the difference to me between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady isn't ability. It is effort. It is the preparation and the will. And a lot of people
yep.
are going to go, oh, every quarterback dedicates their time and every quarterback wants to win. Tom Brady gave up Gisele Bündchen to play football. Aaron Rodgers won't give up mudding, won't give up retreats, in silence. Like, yep. What Aaron Rodgers won't give up for football compared to what Tom Brady would. And I do want to warn Jet fans, because you are living in the hangover of the moment. Be wary, be very cautious, because Jet fans are also Met fans. And if Met fans know anything, it is Murphy's Law. When things are going well, don't worry, buddy. Like, they'll go bad soon enough. And to me, there's a little bit of this in the Jets. Things are going too well for them right now. So, to this point, is Rodgers going to play ball? Is he going to play along? And keep in mind, we just got on the media ride. New York media is loving him right now. Wait till he says something crazy. It only takes one podcast or one appearance on the Pat McAfee show for him to say something crazy, and then the New York Post is going to get more mileage out of that. He may not like it. Adam, how's the press there in Green Bay? I know it's a passionate fan base, but it's not like New York.
No, he's not going to like it. And that's the thing, is he would go on the McAfee show, and throw his stuff out there, and then he'd get questioned it later by the Green Bay media. But you're talking about a very, very small community, very, very small, intimate reporters, and that he would shun most of those guys out. There was only one or two of those guys that he actually would have conversations with. Otherwise, the rest of the guys, it was in the media room and out of the media room. There was nothing aside, locker room talk, so to speak. So if he goes to New York and things aren't going well, and he's spewing his knowledge on a McAfee show and stuff, it's not going to go well. And if we know anything about Aaron Rodgers, he gets his feelings hurt pretty quickly. And he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And if you try to show him up, that's going to be it for you. So it's going to be – I've lived it, right? And it's going to be a really interesting dynamic, especially with the big lights in New York, man. He's coming there, and the Jets fans are thinking they are going to make a deep run, if not be in the Super Bowl with him. That is the expectation. So he's got to come there and play well. And if he doesn't play well, boy, it's going to be a tough road to hoe for him.
Just for those who are watching on TikTok Live and those who are watching on YouTube, you can see, but want to share this with those who are on Twitter Spaces. I pulled up the quarterbacks that the Jets have had. The Jets haven't made the playoffs since 2010 when they had Mark Sanchez. That's the 2010 season, 2011 playoffs. Since then, this is the list of quarterbacks that have played a game. Mark Sanchez, Greg McElroy, Geno Smith, Michael Vick, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Bryce Petty, Geno Smith, Josh McCown, Sam Darnold, Luke Falk, Trevor Siemian, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, Mike White, Josh Johnson. If you have gone through that kind of hell, if you have gone through the desert, if you came across Aaron Rodgers, a second round conditional pick ain't too bad. Moving back ain't too bad. So we're going to close out the conversation by just saying I'm happy that the drama is over, but in both areas, I think both teams won. The Packers move on. We've now entered the Jordan Love era. And for the New York Jets, you don't have to deal with any of the names I just gave you until Aaron Rodgers gets injured in week 3. So with that said, we will move on to the NFL draft, which is quickly approaching. It's amazing we finally got here. We talked about it a little bit, some of the rumors that are swirling around, but I want to get into one of my favorite areas of the draft, which isn't just about the rumors, it's actually about the dollars and the cents behind it, and that is the player prop bets that we're going to go through. I threw out the player prop bets. You can see it on our screen if you're watching on TikTok Live or on YouTube. The guys have already checked out these odds, so we'll get their takes on everything as well. But that said, we're going to open it up with the first defensive player selected. All of a sudden, there is a new favorite in the doghouse as Tyree Wilson is the new favorite at minus 150. Will Anderson, who was largely regarded as the best player for the last year on the defensive side of the ball, he's now plus 125. Want to give a lot of credit to Adam and Michael. Both of them have had their eye on Tyree Wilson for a long time. Michael, we'll start with you. Do you feel like this is a bet worth making on Tyree Wilson, or do you feel like Will Anderson's getting plus money and actually is a good bet?
Yeah, so what I've been seeing a lot for the past couple of days is Tyree is going to be the first defensive player off the board. A lot of these NFL GMs I've been hearing are in love with Tyree's ability. He's a lot bigger than Will Anderson Jr., 6'6", 270. He has just a long frame. They love his ability to get around the offensive line. So I think that it's a rumor that I can 100% see, and I do believe he actually is going to become the first defensive player off the board now. I also been seeing Will Anderson might
all our mock drafts, we had him as the first defensive player taken. So plus money is probably not a bad look. But hey, look, it's right. It was, if Young goes first, it was a slam dunk. C.J. Stroud. Well, that doesn't look like that might be the case anymore. So the Texans actually could be the team taking the first defensive player off the board. So who do the Texans like versus Wilson versus Anderson? But Anderson's been the guy all time leading up to the draft. So
myself that I'm committing to it, but that is right. I will be live for the entire first round of the draft.
player. Once again, you can't go wrong with either the cornerbacks. But I think Witherspoon, just based on what I've been seeing for the past couple of days, I think he's going to be the first one off the board, and I think that he could go as early as to the Lions. So I know they want a cornerback. They're not entirely sold on Jalen Carter, which I still think is kind of preposterous. How teams are still backing off on that talent. I get that there's a lot of issues, but they do need a cornerback, and I think that they like Devin Witherspoon being in the Midwest, Big Ten. They've had just a lot of connections with Witherspoon, so I think that he might be the first one off.
Yeah, I'm hearing that too, and it wasn't one that I was aware of weeks ago. Again, I didn't actually include that in the rumor mill part. I actually feel like that would be a good fit for them. They do need a cornerback. They just moved on from Okudah, who they traded to the Atlanta Falcons after he was kind of a bust for them. But, I mean, I'm with you. I would take Jalen Carter if I were them. But those are some of our picks for this first cornerback selected. The next prop bet that we're going to look at, I have first linebacker. This isn't a great linebacker draft, So for those who are on TikTok Live and on YouTube, you can see what the odds are up there, but we're not going to talk that one. We're going to talk the one that's underneath that. First non-quarterback selected kind of goes to what we spoke of a moment ago. Tyree Wilson, Will Anderson. Are we in agreement on this one? We're going to start Adam, then we'll go Michael and Lope. Adam, who would you put your money down on first non-quarterback selected?
I think Tyree Wilson. Again, I think Will Anderson's been leading up to the draft that we mentioned as the guy, but I think Tyree Wilson's got him edged out there for the first non-quarterback.
Michael?
I agree.
Lope?
Will Anderson, yeah.
Oh, well, Lope's going with the Will Anderson. I'm with Will Anderson as well in terms of who I would like to see go first and who I would put my money down on. I'm just surprised Tyree Wilson is getting this much love. That said, these odds are starting to make me feel like I would be on the wrong end of it. We do shift down now to the first offensive lineman selected, and this one absolutely has been impacted by this trade. Now, I do think that an offensive lineman is going to go before the Packers trade, but it's going to apply some pressure there as to which one goes first. We've talked a lot about Peter Skoronski going to the Bears. A lot of people have recently said Darnell Wright might be the best offensive lineman in this draft, and obviously Paris Johnson Jr., he is the betting favorite at minus 200. Adam, we'll start with you and go around the board. Who do you think is the first O-lineman selected?
Yeah, we talked about it before with our mock drafts that it's just a perfect fit. Northwestern kid, Illinois guy, tough, in the cold December month playing football, but Peter Skoronski at plus 175 to the Bears at number 9. I think we talked about it a couple times. I'm not sure if we've been wavered from that much on the 3 or 4 mock drafts that we've done. So I think at plus money for him, I would definitely look at that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Michael, what do you think? Would you have Skoronski be the first offensive lineman off the board?
Yeah, I would have Skoronski as the first offensive lineman off the board, but I saw this rumor that I don't know how obviously factual it is. It is from a former NFL GM that's saying that Arizona is in love with Paris Johnson at the 3rd pick, which I don't get how that might be one of the biggest reaches in my opinion. I know they obviously want to protect Kyler Murray when he gets back, but obviously, when teams love someone, they do tend to overdraft, like Oakland and Clinton Farrell. That was a major overdraft, so I'll just keep my eye out for Paris Johnson, but I do like Skoronski as the first one off the board.
I like that if they trade back. If they trade back with the Colts or they trade back with another team, if the Seahawks want to try and reach up to go get a backup quarterback, an Anthony Richardson or something like that, if the Titans want to go make that move and try and go get a quarterback, I would love that. I'd be curious to know if they actually draft him at number 3. I feel like that would be a really bold strategy, Cotton. So curious to know what the Cardinals do there. Lope, how do you feel about first offensive lineman off the board?
I'm hearing a lot of Paris Johnson stuff too, but I'm with you. I think the Cardinals may look to trade back a little bit, but I'm hearing that they are big fans of him, so that's where I would bet.
Okay, moving on to our next player prop bet that we're going to be looking at, which is first running back selected. This is as heavy a favorite as you're going to find of any of the player prop bets. Bijan Robinson is minus 10,000. Jahmyr Gibbs, plus 1,000. Is anybody here going to take a chance and take Jahmyr Gibbs as the first running back taken? Adam, is Robinson a slam dunk?
Yeah, I think so. And in reading it, he's been moving up the draft board here lately. He was projected to be maybe towards the end of the first round, but it sounds like he could be a middle first rounder, if not back half of the top 10 here. So, Crazy. Yeah, I think he's 100%. Robinson will be the first one gone.
Michael?
Yeah, no chance in hell that Gibbs is drafted before Robinson. I mean, if you want to put out a bet that's saying, is there going to be 2 running backs in the first round, then I might be a little bit more tempted. But right now, Robinson, clear-cut favorite to get drafted first running back off the board.
Lope?
I agree with Michael. I think Bijan Robinson's definitely the first running back taken. There is a strong chance for 2. Look for the Chiefs late in the pick. Somebody may come in the first round.
Okay, like it. Moving on now to the first wide receiver selected. Jackson Smith and Jigba is the betting favorite here at minus 350. Really interesting to me. Number 2 is Zay Flowers at plus 400. He made some waves because he worked out with Patrick Mahomes, to that point about the Kansas City Chiefs late in a first round, maybe making a move. Zay Flowers is absolutely on their radar, but it sounds like everyone is pretty committed to Jackson Smith-Njigba being the first wide receiver off the board. Do any of you guys have it going the other way? Adam?
Well, I think, that 11th and 12th Tennessee Texans, right? That's kind of where we might see these first receivers come off the board. And Zay Flowers definitely has been getting a lot of press as of late. Obviously, Smith-Njigba is the leading candidate in the clubhouse, but if that Tennessee Texans kind of goes the way we think it's going to go wide receiver, and Tennessee likes Zay Flowers with the way he worked out, 4-1, it might not be a bad look. Jigba's probably going to be the first off the board, but to get 4-1 with Flowers, it's possible.
I'm kind of with you there in that I think Flowers is a popular pick, and I think he's been under the radar a little bit in terms of who's getting talked about because people don't want the word getting out. They're hoping that it kind of stays under the radar a little bit longer. Michael, are you pretty committed to Smith-Njigba being number 1 off the board at wide receiver?
Yeah, I've been committed to him since day one being the number 1 wide receiver prospect, and I still think that he is such.
I got to give you credit. There was a time Quentin Johnston was kind of in, at least in our prop bets, in our mock drafts, we were kind of throwing him out there as maybe the first one selected. You were pretty strong on Smith-Njigba, so I got to give you credit there. Lope, Jackson Smith-Njigba?
I'll take the flyer on Zay Flowers. I think that wide receivers, it just depends on who teams like and how they fit in their scheme. So these are always somebody that you could see going high. So I'm going to go with Zay Flowers.
Okay, now to a really interesting position prop bet, which is the tight end position. Make sure you're listening to this one, Adam, because I know the Packers are going to be interested. The first and the favorite right now is Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame, minus 160, but really interesting. Dalton Kincaid is plus 115. Darnell Washington plus 700. He's the only one that has that third round shot or that third position slot. But that said, Michael Mayer is the favorite. In our mock drafts, we had Kincaid going to the Packers. We had Mayer going to the Bengals. Maybe with this trade, the Packers aren't thinking tight end anymore. Adam, can you provide some insight?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think moving up those 2 spots could have one of these top receivers on the table for him. Michael Mayer was kind of the leader in the clubhouse, and then kind of swung to Kincaid. Now it's kind of swinging back to Mayer. I did do some reading on Kincaid, and it sounds like that back injury that he suffered last year might be kind of coming back around. He's cleared his physicals and they say he's 100%, but I'm wondering if that's as it's getting closer, to the draft, that maybe that back is a little bit more of a concern than we thought in previous weeks. But to me, I think Kincaid's the better of the two. When healthy, so Kincaid at plus 115. I don't have a problem with that. I still think he will be the first one off the board, but I think maybe the shifts from Mayer to Kincaid is maybe because of that back injury he had last year.
Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Adam how it's been back and forth with who's 1 and 2. I think I've just been seeing a lot more Kincaid being drafted in the middle of the first round more than Mayer. Mayer's been more of the late 20s pick for me. So I think Kincaid, and I really don't want it to happen, but I can see Washington going with him at their pick in the middle of the round. Just that's been a flyer that a bunch of the local media has been saying how it's been connected. Ron Rivera is not going to really want to obviously give anyone any insight, but it's just a bunch of speculation. But I do think that Kincaid is going to be the first tight end off.
It's funny, right as we think the Washington Commanders with new ownership are going to get smarter and do things, the last position I think they need to address is tight end. There are so many other needs to me beyond
exactly.
tight end.
No, exactly. But at the same time, it's just we have not had a really great pass-catching tight end since Jordan Reed before the injuries. And obviously with a young quarterback in Sam Howell, they just want to make his job a lot easier. We do have a really great wide receiving core, but at the same time, I think they're going to want to make it a little bit easier with Dalton Kincaid as an elite receiving tight end. Just make it a lot easier for a young quarterback because tight ends are a quarterback's best friend. But I don't want it to happen personally. I'm just saying that. I'm just throwing it out there. That,
by the way, that's what a real fan does. A real fan doesn't go, this is what I hope happens. A real fan goes, I know my team's going to let me down. This is what they're going to do when they let me down, and yet I'm still going to be a fan in the morning. That's what real fans do. Lope, you're not in that position because as a Miami Dolphins fan, you guys tampered and don't have a first-round pick, so you don't have to worry about it. But how do you feel about this tight end position and Michael Mayer versus Dalton Kincaid is the first off the board?
Oh, that hurts. Kincaid, yeah, I think that he's a better pass catcher. Maybe not as far all around, but definitely pass catching and immediate impact. So I think Kincaid will be the first tight end taken.
Okay, those were our reactions to the player prop bets that are out there. Make sure you guys are following us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, Butt Fumble Sports. We're live right now on TikTok Live and, of course, on YouTube. We're also on Twitter Spaces. Every Tuesday, we have an NFL show. We do a weekly NFL show with the guys that you're listening to now. So make sure you join us every Tuesday, and make sure you follow us on TikTok and know every time we go live. We're going to shift now to some of the bets that are on individual players and where they're going to be positioned. Lope, you brought this up earlier. We're going to start with Christian Gonzalez. His over-under is at 8.5 in terms of where he's going to be selected. Right now, the under 8.5, so that would be between picks 1 and 8, would be where he's favored to go. That's going off at minus 135. This is, I feel like, an opportunity to actually take the over. The over is going off at minus 105. I think there's a decent chance that he falls a little bit just because of the movement at quarterback impacting cornerbacks. Cornerback is really deep. Quarterbacks, I think there's going to be a rush to go up early. So for a lot of reasons, I'm kind of curious to know what you guys think. Does Christian Gonzalez fall? Obviously, I hope so because I've been saying him to the Patriots for about 2 months now, hoping I can speak it into fruition. But that said, Lope, we'll start with you. Do you feel like under or over 8.5 as the draft spot is good for Christian Gonzalez?
I'm going to take the under. I think he's just too talented, and there's some teams, the Lions, Raiders, and Falcons, that'll be looking for corner, and not including teams that may still try to trade up.
I'm hoping that, to counter your thinking, I'm hoping that the trade to get Jeff Okudah for the Falcons means they're going to look towards another position. I could see them going after Jackson Smith and Jigba. They need a wide receiver now that they moved on from Calvin Ridley. And as for, who was the other team you mentioned? Oh, the Lions. I'm hoping they go Devin Witherspoon, and that forces Christian Gonzalez to fall a little bit.
Fair enough.
Oh, great counterpoints from Lope. Michael, what do you think about that? Where do you think Christian Gonzalez goes, and how would you bet it?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think Witherspoon's going to be the first one off the board, and it really does depend on the next cornerback taken because you do have a Jalen Carter, you do have Will Anderson Jr. and Tyree Wilson, and those are the non-quarterbacks. So right there, that's already going to be 8 picks. So I really do think that I'm going to go with the over in the 8.5. I can see him going anywhere from the 9 to 13 range.
I had the same kind of thinking behind it of like, okay, you do the math. If 4 quarterbacks go before him, you have, at least 3 other defensive players, defensive linemen. Maybe you get an offensive lineman there or 2, and boom, you're over the top and you're at 9 picks or more. Adam, where do you come out on it?
Yeah, I'm with Lope on this one. And personally, I think Gonzalez is the first corner off the board, and I think he's going to go to Detroit. I've been reading some more stuff kind of linking him with them, and I think they're going to stay away from another Big Ten corner from what the troubles had with Okudah. And don't get me wrong, I like Witherspoon. I like Witherspoon a lot, but I think Gonzalez is going to end up with the Lions. So I'm with Lope. I would be under 8.5 there.
I like that we're split on this one. Gives us something to talk about next week once we get through the actual draft. I want to now go to Dalton Kincaid and his draft position. We just talked about the tight ends a moment ago. His over-under on draft position is 24.5. Over 24.5 is actually favored at minus 135. Under 24.5 at minus 105. Again, Packers trade might have impacted this. Tight ends is a deep position. You feel like there's going to be a run on offensive linemen before there's a run on tight end. Does that mean Kincaid doesn't go until late first round? 24 feels a little deep for me. Adam, we'll start with you. Do you feel like Dalton Kincaid under 24.5 is a good bet?
I do, because I still think he is on the Packers' radar for sure. And I think that with these receivers, it all depends with the Packers, right? I think if if Flowers and Jigba are off the board, I think Kincaid's the guy. It's like we talked about before. Love, you need to surround your young quarterback with as much talent as possible. And right now we have a pretty good young receiving core when healthy with Watson and Dobbs, but we do not have a tight end. We haven't had a tight end in Green Bay for quite some time. So I think Kincaid to the Packers is a very, very real possibility. And because of the Jigba and Flowers probably coming off the board right before they pick. So I would go under 24.5 here at minus 105.
Who's the last tight end you guys really had? Like Bubba Franks?
Jermichael Finley until he has a neck injury. Yeah, Jermichael Finley maybe. But really, I mean, you go back to Ed West, the toolbox, or Mark Chimura, really a guy that made a big difference at the tight end position. And we've been trying to get one ever since. And, you know, we drafted Jake Sternberg from Texas A&M. He was going to be the guy. That didn't work out. Yeah. So we've tried. But, again, you got to support Love with everything possible here.
It does make you look back on the Rodgers years really quick and go, man, you never gave him a good tight end. You never really gave him a superstar wide receiver. Obviously, he had Devontae Adams, so I take that back. But as in, you didn't address those positions while other teams loaded up at those positions, you know? He moves on.
It never would have been enough for him anyway. It wouldn't have mattered. He would just cry into the next thing anyway. We could have signed everyone in the world, and he would have been on to something else.
This is like talking to someone's cousin after a divorce, and they're like, yeah, I never liked him anyways. Like, he was rude to me at Thanksgiving. That said, Michael, we'll turn to you. Where do you think Dalton Kincaid ultimately goes in this draft? Over or under pick 24?
Yeah, as Adam said, it really does depend on the Packers' pick with this and who falls if there is a good pass-catching receiver available for them. But I'm going to go with the over, actually, because it really, like, there's not many teams that I can see is going to draft a tight end in the first round. It might be at, like, 2 or 3, but those are not until later in the first rounds. Like, you could have the Chargers take a flyer on Dalton Kincaid. Well, you can also wait all the way until Dallas, and Dallas is going to be after the over-under. So I think that I feel safer with going with the over.
It's interesting because what complicates this pick for me is I think Dalton Kincaid will be the first tight end taken off the board. I think tight ends, even though it's a deep position, may fall a little bit, in part because I think there's some teams that go, if we wait, we can still get a tight end in the second round, but if we don't get our offensive tackle, if we don't get our pass rusher, if we don't get our cornerback, they'll be gone later. So I'm curious to know where tight ends go overall. Lope, where do you come out on the Dalton Kincaid draft position of 24.5?
I'm going to go over. I like your logic. I think that teams are going to trade up, and I think you said it earlier. I think if the Packers can trade back and maybe get an extra pick and still get Kincaid later, they might try to do that too.
We're not going to dive heavy into this one, but I saw it and really caught my eye. Darnell Wright, the tackle out of Tennessee. A lot of people are starting to say he might actually be the best offensive lineman in this draft. Louis Riddick on ESPN is in love with this guy. He kind of comps him to a Trent Brown, just a massive human being who can bully other huge human beings around. His draft position is set right now at 15.5. I thought that was really interesting given that Jets trade because I think the Patriots are in play for him. I think the Jets are in play for him. I could see the Eagles being in play for him as a potential replacement to like a Lane Johnson in a year or two. A lot of interesting things. So we won't dive into this one, but one I did want to call out. The next draft position we will break down is Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker over under 31.5. A lot of talk has been about the Minnesota Vikings, but if there's any team that could use a defensive player, it's the Minnesota Vikings, not another quarterback. So Hendon Hooker over under 31.5. The under is a heavy favorite. So a lot of people are expecting him to be the fifth quarterback taken in the first round and for him to go in the first round before the 32nd pick. Where, Adam, do you have him ultimately going?
So I like the over for Hendon Hooker on this one, 31.5. And the reason being is I think Seattle takes him with their first pick in the second round. I know a lot of chatter has been Anthony Richardson to Seattle early in the draft. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think if you have a comparable quarterback in the draft to Anthony Richardson, it's probably Hendon Hooker. You know, Richardson's obviously probably a little more talented, but they're kind of one and the same. And I think Hooker, you know, with his injury, he considered Geno Smith for a couple of years. Like we talked about, re-signing Geno Smith isn't just for how well he played, is to nurture a young quarterback. So I think Seattle goes defense early in the draft, and I think sitting early in the second round would be Hendon Hooker, and that's where they make the pick.
I love it. What do you think, Mike?
On it, my brain says like over, but a lot of the rumor mills I've been seeing is teams trading back into the first round to take Hooker.
Oh, interesting.
And I wouldn't be shocked if like Las Vegas doesn't take a quarterback with the 7th overall pick, trade back into the first round to get Hooker. But at the same time, I just think that right now it's the over is the only logical bet to me.
I think you're right. I like that idea of a team trading back in. Lope, where do you come down on Hendon Hooker?
I'm on the over. I think, like Adam said, I think the injuries are going to scare people on trading, and they're going to feel that he could land to them in the second round, especially early. So I would say the over is the safer play.
So we've now gone from we've checked out some player props by position. We've looked at draft position for some certain players. There also are bets you can make on which team actually selects the player. So we were going to start with Anthony Richardson, which team to draft Anthony Richardson. Right now, the betting favorite, believe it or not, is the Tennessee Titans at plus 225. If you're watching on TikTok Live or YouTube, you can see that on your screen. The second best odds is the Seahawks at plus 250, and the Raiders are at plus 400. Colts are at plus 375. I missed them a moment ago. In our mock drafts, I believe in a number of them, we had the Las Vegas Raiders selecting him. Adam, where do you think Anthony Richardson will ultimately be drafted?
Well, this is an interesting one here, too, because as we talk about with the Colts, their prototypical quarterback is a pocket passer, and Will Levis fits that mold, and Richardson really doesn't fit that mold. But if the Cardinals trade out of that pick and someone jumps up to pick Will Levis, if he's the hot guy right now, the Colts at plus 375 sitting there at fourth it would be a pretty good look here to get Richardson, depending on what happens with that second and third pick of the draft. But Colts at plus 375, that has my interest.
Completely agree. I thought the Will Levis news actually was very much an indicator that Colts plus 375 could be a good play. Mike, what do you think?
The Titans bet is very intriguing to me because it really does depend on where Will Levis and CJ Stroud both get drafted. If CJ falls, then obviously you can have teams trading up to try to get CJ, which includes Las Vegas, who I had as Anthony Richardson's next team in many of the mock drafts because I believe I was responsible for that connection. But I do like the Titans. I'm going to go with the Titans bet on this.
Here's my question to counter that that I posed to you. Is Malik Willis? You're now going to draft another talented quarterback that needs to be developed. Like you're going to use 2 early picks of the last 2 years on that.
Well, here's the thing with Malik Willis. I just think that is completely done in Tennessee.
Yeah, he's done.
Yes, I get that they might not want to do another quote-unquote project quarterback and wait to develop. But at the same time, Anthony Richardson's physical and athletic capability is 10 times better than what Malik Willis was coming out of Liberty.
Totally.
So I think that they could take that chance. Yes, maybe stick with Tannehill for another year as the bridge quarterback, or even just re-sign Josh Dobbs and go with him for a few games, and just obviously you might have the chanting for Richardson to come in and see what he can give you. I get right now you had the whole thing with Goff and him leaving his team. You had a whole thing with Josh Rosen drafting Kyler Murray #1 overall. Teams, to me, if they don't find the right quarterback, they have no problem going in the next year's draft and drafting another quarterback high up.
I agree, because now we've gotten to a point where the idea of giving a quarterback time to develop and time to earn the job, that's so 2010. That's so decades ago at this point. It feels like now it's a win every year business for NFL teams. And Joe Burrow, I have to admit, changed a lot of things, because the idea that he could take the Cincinnati Bengals to a Super Bowl in his first 2 years, it dramatically changed what we think of, getting a franchise quarterback in a draft, at least to me. Before it was, okay, maybe he'll win you get you to a Super Bowl in his rookie contract, or maybe in his first 7 to 10 years on the team. But the idea you could draft a quarterback and he can get you there in 2 years, 3 years, very much changes everything. Lope, we go to you now. We had Titans off the board for Trent Richardson, or Anthony Richardson. Trent Richardson, yikes. Anthony Richardson, though, Titans for Mike. Raiders for Adam. Adam, who'd you have? Did you have Colts or Raiders? You had Colts. Sorry. Lope, who do you have Anthony Richardson going to?
This just screams to me Pete Carroll pick in the Seahawks. I think that he's going to pull the trigger. He's one that always I'll take this guy that's a project and we'll develop him because I'm smarter than everybody else. So this just seems like the wild, crazy thing that they'll do. So I got Seattle.
We're going to move now to Bijan Robinson. Which team will draft him? Believe it or not, the favorite for this one, the Atlanta Falcons at plus 200. The Eagles come in second at plus 300. Texans are plus 500. And then the Cowboys and the Bears at plus 1,000. We're going to start with you, Lope, and then go the other way around. Where do you have Bijan Robinson ultimately landing?
I'd like to see him in Philadelphia. I think that he really would impact the Eagles the best. But I don't think it. I think it's worth maybe a U or a half U on the Cowboys because that screams something that with the Texas roots they might try to pull off.
Okay, just a shekel or two. Michael, what do you think about Bijan?
Yeah, I also think the Eagles will be the team to pick Bijan because obviously, I would hate it. He's a great player. I've been seeing a bunch of the NFC East teams are worried that the Eagles will draft Bijan because of the type of player he is. So I just think that they're just bracing for Bijan to run rampant on everyone for the next few years. So I think that the Eagles will be the team to draft him.
Adam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can see the Eagles drafting him, obviously, with the loss of Miles Sanders, but the 10th pick in the draft for running back to me just seems way too rich. I just can't see the Eagles pulling that off. Recently, the Patriots have been a name that's been floating around. Some of these mock drafts have them taking Bijan Robinson, but I'm kind of with Lope. Cowboys at 10-1. He loses Ezekiel Elliott. Pollard comes off the injury. This has got Jerry Jones written all over this pick. So at 10-1, to have Jerry do something stupid and take Bijan Robinson in that spot, I think that's a good play.
By the way, did you guys hear the press conference comment that Jerry Jones made? It was a joke, but did you guys hear it? You guys know what I'm talking about?
I did not.
No, I did not.
Okay, so it's press conference, pre-draft press conference. Mike McCarthy, Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones up there yakking it up with the Dallas media. And it's closing. The question must have been like, how do you feel about your drafting ability? How do you feel about the draft process? Do you think that's what's holding you back? Do you feel like you've been good at the draft? And Jerry Jones jokingly, to his credit, it was a joke, goes, no, it's not our ability to draft, it's the coaching. That's the problem. And Mike McCarthy looks like the kid in class that knows a joke's being made about him that's probably more true than he wants it to be. And so it was a very awkward, funny moment that I'm sure will be played back later in the year when the Dallas Cowboys inevitably implode and Mike McCarthy is on the chopping block. So
that's great because there was a clip of him with Green Bay when we went on that losing streak with him. And he was getting really salty with the media. And he said, hey, I'm a very highly successful football coach, and I'm a coach in the NFL for a reason. So, again, one of the guys that thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. So that's good. That's off to a good start already for them.
Mike McCarthy is one of those guys, I don't know what to make of him. Like Bill Belichick, genius. Mike Tomlin, great leader of men. Mike McCarthy, large. Mike McCarthy. Like, I don't know what superlative to put on it.
No, I agree. I mean, he's a good football coach. There's no doubt about it. But you're right. He's not an over eccentric, and he's not a great leader. He's not exactly.
You know what Mike McCarthy is?
Stands out.
Mike McCarthy is if you played Madden and you did start a season with coach mode, he'd be the generic coach they give you that's just large, white, middle-aged, and has a headset. Yeah. Boom, Mike McCarthy. So now that we've taken a dump on Mike McCarthy's head, we can move on. Want to quickly go through, we're not going to talk about him, but the team to draft Hendon Hooker, the heavy favorite on this one is the Minnesota Vikings at plus 350, but the Titans at plus 700, one to consider. We brought that up earlier. Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama, who's expected to be the second running back off the board, Guess who the favorite is for this one? It's the New England Patriots at plus 650. They have a history of drafting Alabama players, specifically Alabama running backs. They just let Damian Harris go in his walk year. Jahmyr Gibbs could be a replacement for him. They're the favorites there, with the Dallas Cowboys coming in second at 650. That goes up against the Bijan Robinson one. The next one we're going to talk about is a player that has been in the news for all the wrong reasons over the last few months. He made all the right impressions with his game tape, but since then, a lot of questions about his motor, a lot of questions about his actions off the field. That's Jalen Carter out of Georgia. Which team's going to draft him? The Bears are the favorite at 325. The Eagles then come in at 375, and then the Lions at plus 400, with the Seahawks at plus 500. Adam, we start with you. Which team do you think is going to select Jalen Carter?
Well, I actually really like the Raiders here at plus 1,400, because I think at the top of this draft, with it getting mixed up now with these quarterbacks and Levis and now Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson and a bunch of these guys getting eaten up in those top drafts, I think Seattle's going to go with defense. I think Gonzalez is going to go to the Lions, and that leaves Carter sitting there at number 7 for the Raiders, and they need interior defensive line help. So I think at plus 1,400 to them, I think that's definitely worth a look for the Raiders here.
Plus 1,400, those would be amazing odds if he were to fall that far. Mike, what are your thoughts?
I'd say keep an eye out for Seahawks at plus 500, just because of the whole Will Anderson falling situation, which I still don't get. But I've been seeing that Will Anderson's been falling maybe a little bit too much, but Seattle would love a Jalen Carter type player on the defensive line. But I still see him going to the Lions. I just think that's the home run hit for Detroit. That's Dan Campbell type player right there. I know they're going to need cornerback help, but at 6, if Jalen Carter's there, you got to run the card in.
It's unfortunate. Again, I think the Jeff Okudah trade is a signal that Devin Witherspoon is probably going to be the pick for the Lions. But from, again, like a Madden franchise building standpoint, putting Jalen Carter next to Aiden Hutchinson and saying, okay, boys, go get the quarterback, that reminds me of Jerome Brown and Reggie White with the Eagles. Like, two scary human beings coming at your quarterback. Like, I think the Lions would be silly to move on from it, but I get the cornerback play. Lope, where do you see Jalen Carter being selected? Is there a team worth betting on for it?
I think he's gonna slide. So I'm not sure that I'm too confident on betting, but I kind of like Adam's logic. If there's an owner that's going to kind of dismiss the off-field stuff, and a place where a lot of character issue guys go, it's the Raiders. So at plus 1,400, that's pretty good odds. But I expect him to fall. There's always that one top prospect that's waiting in the room to get their name called. That falls a little further than most expect, and I think that's him.
We call that the Laramie Tunsil Award. The player who came in with all the right notes and for a bong hits reason is all of a sudden falling on the board and has to sit there like a fool. Again, to look over some of the other notes, we won't dive into it. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the favorite to draft him right now is the Packers at plus 250, then the Texans at plus 650, and the Patriots at plus 850. So wouldn't it be funny if the Packers finally draft a quarterback right after they move on from Aaron Rodgers? And in fact, it's Aaron Rodgers being traded that helps secure that wide receiver. As for the Michael Mayer selection, which team will draft him? Again, the Packers are the favorite at plus 400. So they can't draft both these guys. So interesting plays here to be made from a betting standpoint. Cowboys at plus 450 are kind of interesting with Michael Mayer. I didn't think tight end was going to be the first position they went towards, but that's a popular play. Chargers at plus 650 is another one that you may want to consider for Michael Mayer. The last bets we're going to talk about tonight have to do with how many positions are selected in the first round. That'll close out the show for tonight. Guys, this is going to be a rapid fire segment right here. So we're going to start with total quarterbacks selected in the first round. It's over under 4.5. Just give me over under 4.5. We'll start with you, Adam.
Under.
Michael?
Under.
Lope? Lope didn't understand the assignment, so we're gonna let Lope.
Under.
Okay, under. I guess I'll be the one contrarian here. I'm gonna take the over. The over is going off at minus 230. Unders at plus 160. I guess I'm the chump that's throwing down the money and waiting for Vegas to take it, but I'll take the over thinking Hendon Hooker sneaks into that first round. Total offensive linemen drafted in the first round, over under 5.5. Adam, over under.
Over.
Mike?
I'm going to go under.
Interesting. Under is going off at plus 325, so that would be a great bet. Lope,
I think that there just might be 5.
Okay, you're sitting at 5 dead exact, which
Over.
Okay, so Lope's going on the over. I'm kind of with Michael on this one. I'm going to take the under. I think there's going to be a run on offensive linemen in the middle of the draft, but I could see there being another position there being a run on. Again, Hendon and Hooker, tight ends might play a factor into that one. Okay, total running backs drafted in the first round. Over 1.5 is going off at minus 190. Under 1.5 at plus 145. Adam, over under 1.5 running backs in the first round.
Under. Bijan's the only one that's going to go in the first round.
Again, the under's at plus money. So
It's
if
crazy.
you...
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Again, Jahmyr Gibbs is starting to make a little bit of noise, but okay, really? Mike, what do you think? Over, under 1.5?
Yeah, under. I have Bijan.
Lope?
Over. The Chiefs are trading that pick to somebody to get Gibbs.
Okay. See, that's how I could see it happening. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, we'll close it out on this one. Total wide receivers drafted in the first round. Over, under 3.5. Over is going off at minus 110. Under at minus 130. Adam, total wide receivers over, under 3.5.
Over. It's going to be 4 drafted.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I agree 100% 4.
Lope?
Over.
There you have it. We've gone through a number of the prop bets. There are a few more out there that you could check out. Which position teams are going to select. The Packers right now, the favorite position for there is defensive lineman or edge rusher, with tight end coming in second. For the Patriots, cornerback and offensive lineman are tied with the best odds at plus 225. Wide receiver is third, and believe it or not, quarterback is fourth. Can't believe that with the Patriots. The Jets, I think this is the best bet you can make in the entire draft. Position of the team's first drafted player, New York Jets. Offensive lineman is going off at minus 280. I don't care. Minus 280, bet the house, bet the farm, bet your wife on it, because the Jets are drafting an offensive lineman. Guaranteed. The Jets are going to... Jalen Carter could fall. Will Anderson could fall. Anybody could fall. I guarantee you Jets offensive lineman. Put the house on it. That'll be my take. And I know we've got Michael in here. So the Commanders, which position they're favored to take, believe it or not, it's cornerback at minus 125. Michael, I know you and I both think they're going to... I was going to say something else. We both think they're going to screw that one up, but hopefully we're wrong and they actually go with what Vegas says, and a quarterback. I know we'd all be happy with that. Appreciate all of you guys joining us for the show. Again, every Tuesday night, we are here on Twitter Spaces, TikTok Live, and on YouTube. Make sure you follow us, Butt Fumble Sports. We're here to talk sports with all of you. And just like Adam, Mike, and Lope, you can join the conversation as well. Butt Fumble Sports is here to empower the sports fan. So make sure you reach out to us. Contact us on our website, buttfumblesports.com, or DM us on Instagram, TikTok, or on YouTube. Again, Butt Fumble Sports is our channel. So appreciate you guys watching. Keep in mind, we are going to do a live show for the NFL Draft on TikTok Live. You can catch us during the NFL Draft. Can't believe I'm going to do it, but I will be live for every single pick. So you're going to get a window into my 3 hours of reaction to the draft live. Make sure you follow. That way you know when we join that show live. Appreciate all of you guys joining us. We will see you next week for the NFL Weekly Show, and of course, again on Thursday for the NFL Draft. Good luck to all of you. Good luck to your teams. And of course, congratulations, New York Jets. This is what it means to not be irrelevant. We'll see you soon, guys.